Do we have too many human rights, right? And does human rights legislation actually put us all at risk because it gives excessive protection to people who want to do us harm? Former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has criticised what he calls the lunacy of laws that prevent Britain from carrying out raids abroad to capture terror suspects. Bit of context: if we had have found Osama bin Laden, OK, apparently we would not have been able to conduct the kind of raid that the Americans did. He said that the UK is being forced to kill enemies of Britain or leave them to continue plotting attacks, mainly, it appears, down to the ECHR. I'm joined now by immigration lawyer Ivon Sampson and barrister and writer for The Spectator, Stephen Barrett. Both of you, thank you very, very much, chaps. Great to have you on the show. Stephen, look, I'll start with you. Do we have too many human rights laws?
Well, it's really interesting that you phrase the question that way, isn't it? Because what happens is there's absolute atrocity in Central Europe. We all know about the Second World War. We come out of it. We say, well, everybody can have their own legal system and be complicated again, but here's a short list of basic stuff you must never do. This is the absolute fundamental. And since then, we've just been worrying at them. We've been pulling on the threads. We have a court which has declared that that list, which should be a comprehensive list, is what they call a living document. Now, Patrick, that is not an act of law. That is an act of magic. And what it allows them to do is to completely rewrite the words of that original document. So far from having a document which actually records the basis of everything, we have a ridiculous magic document. Okay. This is not the classic narrative of sort of right-wingers versus left-wingers and then liberals and all the rest of it. What we have reached, or what Ben Wallace has disclosed, is that because of the European Court of Human Rights, we are killing people in circumstances where we wouldn't otherwise be killing them. I mean, that is quite shocking, given that the right to life is one of those supposed human rights. That's quite shocking.
It is shocking. Look, Ivon, I'll bring you back in now. Immigration lawyer Ivon Sampson. Increasingly, especially what's been going on in the Channel, it does appear to me as that human rights laws and the ECHR, etc., is being abused by people in order to get what they want, and sometimes what they want is not good for Britain. I mean, this is just the latest classic example of this. Why should a judge from San Marino or Luxembourg maybe be able to dictate whether or not we can go and slaughter jihadi?
Well, look, the government can't be judge and jury of people they identify as terrorists. That's the first thing. Quite often, the information government gets is flawed. We know that from the Iraq War. So I think you need to have safety nets. Everyone has a right to challenge a decision. And if there's no right to challenge a decision, then we're living in a communist, Putinist type state. And we can't have that. Everyone has rights. So if somebody's identified as a terrorist, and where's the evidence? The government's well within their rights to put forward evidence to substantiate what they're saying. And the laws are there to protect all of us.
OK, look, Stephen, I'll throw it back to you. I mean, there is this particularly bizarre situation, though, isn't it, where now we would be allowed to exterminate someone but not capture them. I mean, what would happen if we just did what we wanted? Seriously, well, can't we just do it and just go, well, no one's going to disagree with us, sod it?
Well, it is a very bizarre position. The idea that there is no route to appeal if you've just been bombed by a drone. So, the idea that the most important thing is some sort of route to appeal is clearly not going to stand up. What the problem that we have with human rights is that they're not really doing law. So I find it very difficult to describe that building in Strasbourg as a court in the way that I understand a court, which is you take laws, they're known in advance, what we call posited in advance, they're written down, so you know what they are, and then a court interprets them and applies them in a consistent way. And actually what Strasbourg does is not that. And because it's set free from law, the only guide rope it's got is politics. It's been following for the last sort of 25 years, vaguely centre-left politics. That's absolutely fair. And it may well be almost charitable to Strasbourg that this is happening, because there is clearly a sea change in general politics, which is exposing the fact that this is happening. Whilst everybody believed it and liked centre-left politics, you couldn't sort of expose the court as a politician. But it's now going to come out as a politician, and it's probably going to come out as quite a bad one as the mood changes and people want things like asylum dealt with.
OK. Ivon, is it fair to say that people, including jihadis, terrorists, and in some cases bogus asylum seekers, are now just looking at the current legal structure that we have, the current setup of human rights that we have, and they're just completely abusing it?
No, that's not fair. For example, the Refugee Convention prohibits terrorists from claiming asylum under Article 1F. And so anyone who's a terrorist cannot claim asylum. So the laws are there to prevent them. And look, the European Convention on Human Rights is implemented into domestic legislation through the Human Rights Act. That's an act of Parliament. Parliament has a right to amend that act. They could amend that act, something in line with Article 1F, to stop terrorists from seeking protection of the Human Rights Act. But there has to be decided by the courts. You can't have governments being judge and jury. You cannot. That is not in a democratic society. You cannot allow that to happen. You must have the courts able to grant protection to those that are being unfairly treated and exposed to the abuse of power by governments.
OK. Look, both of you, unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave it there, because in an ironic twist, my human rights go out the window if I ever run a break. I just get taken outside and shot.